Some of you may have a tradition of, at some point before Christmas, piling in the car and going to see the lights. Christmas displays. They have professional ones. They have unprofessional ones. Some are huge. Some are small. Some are subtle. Some are over the top. But we all have our favorite kind of light displays. You may go down some neighborhood streets and you see some that are just so big. And then every so often after that, there's a house that may just have one light in the window or a wreath on the door. Nothing huge, nothing big, something subtle, something small. I always think it's something about those small little subtle ones. I mean, the big ones are great. The subtle ones point to something beyond themselves. They point to the reason for what we do, so that you're not saying, "Oh, wasn't that great? Look at that." But maybe you think of, "Oh yeah, that's about Jesus." Jesus kind of came that way. I mean, he did. He didn't come big. He didn't come with a big light display that lit up the whole world and everybody knew and there was fanfare and marching bands. And he came in a stable, small, dirty, no room anywhere else kind of place. That's what he came like, a quiet, humble, unexpected way. And yet, it changed everything. The part of Christmas that Mike read shows us Joseph and Mary traveling to Bethlehem because there was that decree by Caesar. Caesar, I want to tax the whole world, so everybody got to go to their hometown because that's how we're going to organize this. So I don't care wherever you live now, everybody's got to go. So you imagine the confusion, and everybody's life was in upheaval because they had to leave where they were and go do something they didn't want to do at a place they didn't want to be. So for Joseph and Mary, that meant traveling about 70 miles. This wasn't a great time for Mary to do that. Mary was pregnant. She was ready to give birth. The timing really could not have been worse. And yet, Old Testament prophecy was about to be fulfilled. I mean, the irony of the passage is that it says there was no room in the inn when they got there, which literally means we're turning you away. We are rejecting you. So the people that Jesus came to save, in the very town that he came to save them, rejected him. We don't want you. God in human flesh comes to a place, and the people that he comes to don't even want him there. But we have to learn sometimes that we need to think about making room for Jesus in our lives. Sometimes our lives are filled. We're filled with the stress and the busyness and the schedules and the worry and all those things, all that stuff. But sometimes we need to think about making some space for Jesus. Do you have a Christmas stocking? Do you do stockings in your house? Okay, we do stockings, and later this morning we'll be opening the stockings that are stuffed. There's so much stuff in the stockings. We have piles outside the stockings because you can't fit all that. They need to make stockings about that big, about that wide, but they're like, well, what can you put in that? And that's kind of what our life is like. Our life is filled with all that stuff, all the worries and the stress and the busyness and the schedules and everything but what we should be focusing on. And sometimes you need to get rid of. Sometimes we need to get rid of all the stuff in our lives and make room. Take all that stuff out. Empty it out so that Christ can come in, so that we can have those things that we're longing for, the hope and the peace and the joy and the love. So Mary and Joseph ended up in that stable that some think it was even a cave outside the inn, and Jesus is born and laid in a manger. A manger is that feeding trough. That's what animals eat out of. That's where they put him. And then the news of Jesus' arrival spreads. And after Jesus is born, the first ones to receive the news are the shepherds. The shepherds. And we kind of think of them as this nice, cozy guys with the big crooks, and they're out there loving sheep all the time. This was kind of the rejects of life, the shepherds. Nobody wanted to be a shepherd. Nobody hung out with shepherds. Shepherds couldn't come into the temple because they were unclean, and they were not trustworthy people. And yet, when God comes, that's who he comes to first. When he comes with an announcement, that's who he comes to first. The rejects of life, the outcasts of society. But when he comes with that big light display. The angel appears in the glory of God. And, we can't imagine what that must have been like. The glory of God filling the night sky, lighting up the world. The Savior has been born. Imagine their fear, awe, excitement. But God has chosen the lowliest, the most undeserving, to reveal himself to. And when we make space for Jesus, we begin to realize that God doesn't always show up where we expect him to and how we expect him to. God chose those unlikely recipients, and they were so overwhelmed. They said, well, we got to find out what's going on with this. We got to go. Where is this? Bethlehem? Hey, we're going to Bethlehem. And so they arrived. You have just seen the glory of God displayed in the heavens, and you think, well, wherever this child is, this is going to be the biggest thing ever, and there's going to be entourages and displays and parades, and the king and the emperor and everybody else has got to be there because this is God in human flesh. And what do they find? They find this. They had a hard time finding it, for one thing. And then when they found it, it was not at all what they expected. That's where they laid God in human flesh. So we are called to search for Jesus, to find Jesus, but sometimes we find Jesus in unexpected places. Sometimes we find him in acts of kindness in a hospital room, or kind acts to a stranger, or love to someone perhaps that is in need or even doesn't really deserve an act of kindness. We see him where we least expect it, in those small things, those small actions. For the last few years, we've been doing something in our church called Operation Christmas Child. Those Christmas shoe boxes, if you know anything about those things. Samaritan's Purse, that you fill those, and then you send them, and they send them to some country to children on the other side of the globe as a way of sharing the love of Christ. And for some of us, we don't get real excited about that, but then there's some of us who get really excited about that, and I can imagine there's some children who get excited about thinking about buying and making gifts for children who need to know Jesus. Oh, what can we put that in there, Mom? How about this? Can we put that in there? Okay, we don't have enough room. Okay, we can't put the lid on because we got so much stuff in the shoebox. But it's that ordinary act, that simple act of kindness for someone else, where Jesus shows up in our lives, in our world. John chapter 1, verse 9. Find it here. The true light that gives light to everyone is coming into the world. He was in the world, and through the world was made, though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. You see, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. God entered our world as a humble baby to offer us grace and truth and love. And if you don't share that with somebody, you've missed the point. The light has come into the world, and light is meant to be shared.